James. Hello. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to record the Paul and Ricky show version 2 as a non-go live, and we're going to. I'm just going to publish it as a normal video. So because I want to get some content out there. So we've got Paul here. This is Sharon from the Thames Machine days, and we've got Ricky here, and this is the Paul and Ricky show number 2. And we're going to be talking about Mammaries and Murderies, and why it is that on TV it's relatively rare to see what I'd call a normalised amount of nudity, like people being nude in the shower or being nude when they're making love, and compared to the amount of murder that we see on TV and in the movies, and why that is that one of them is quite normalised and the other isn't. So the first thing I want to do is relate 2 stories to you. One was when I was in Papua New Guinea. I was up in the highlands in a place called Goroka, and there were women there that were breastfeeding their children out in public. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, boobs, and I'd really react to it. But I noticed very quickly that no one else was reacting, because to the Papuan people, it was completely normal and part of their culture. So I normalised my behaviour, and I found that it only took 24 hours. And after 24 hours, I was no longer reacting in that same way, and I was therefore conforming with that culture. The other thing was when I was in the Netherlands, I was watching TV and an ad for shampoo came on, and the ad showed a girl washing her hair with the shampoo, and she was topless because you don't wear a bikini in the shower. And that was completely normal for that Dutch television. So the first thing I'd say to you guys is, having thought about it during the week, is it's not all of Western culture, because there certainly is Scandinavia that is perfectly fine, or certainly more fine than us, with showing nudity. And it's certainly not a first world thing, because you can see Papua New Guinea is a developing country. They're fine with it. And I'm aware, as you probably are, that there would be tribes in Africa and tribes in South America, for example, where they would also have topless people. Actually, through the Pacific as well. The Pacific Islands have it as well. So it's not Western culture, and it's not first world culture. So I think it is just how it happens in that place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Climate? Potentially climate culture? But no one wants to be nude when it's cold.
Yeah, and I'm not Scandinavian, I don't think any of us are, but maybe it's because they do have the saunas, and I don't know, but you may be nude in those saunas, I don't know. And maybe that's part of how it comes about for Scandinavian people, I don't know. If you're Scandinavian, please do comment and let us know.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought about that. Now, the other thing was to do with murder.
Yes.
And I've done some creative writing and stuff like that, and I can tell you that one of the elements of writing good stories is having conflict. And I think why we constantly see murder in TV shows and in books and what have you, is it because it immediately gives you conflict, and it immediately gives you a sense of right and wrong. And that when murder has happened, something really wrong has happened. So you are immediately thinking, I now want the right thing to happen, which is I now want to solve this mystery and catch the murderer. So you've immediately got all of those elements that you need to tell a good story. And so that formula of a story plays on and on and on. Whereas, so that plays out.
It's a little bit different on that side, though, because there's like an element of justice. I think you said earlier.
Yeah.
You were talking about solving the crime because we want justice. We want the right thing to happen. That's not necessarily the case when you're talking about nudity. There is no element. It doesn't have the same buy-in.
No. So they need to be examined separately. Yeah. So the murder is able to tell a story. Is a formula to a story. Nudity isn't. Nudity is
part of a big story.
Part of making love in a loving relationship, and a loving relationship can be part of a storyline. But see, there's not the conflict, and there's not the sense of justice. So it is simply an element that can be there or not be there. But the murder part gives the reason for the storyline to exist.
Some of those shows too, I think when you're looking at a murder, for example, they often go into graphic detail. So they examine it, they look for clues, they find out what's happened, and there's graphic representations of what has happened.
Right.
I don't think you would want to do that with nudity. That's not that's certainly not what I would want to see. I'd like to see it normalised and be part of a broader storyline, but not examined in
not graphically,
such
not
detail.
Whatever. No, it's really just to show that it's normal to do this. I don't need to see the close-up details.
Yeah.
But just that it's normal.
Yeah.
It should be fine. But as I say, it doesn't have that clinching conflict that murder does, and I think that's actually why we do see murder so much on TV, and
That's the hook.
Yeah, and the lack of nudity is just a cultural thing. In Holland or Scandinavia, I think we would see it.
Yeah.
It's just that in non-Scandinavian Western society we don't. Yeah, and there is of course Scandinavian noir or Scandi noir, which is, you guys not heard of this?
No.
Okay. There's you're into true crime, aren't you?
I am.
Oh, look, I've got a new world for you to explore.
Oh, awesome.
If you search for Scandi noir or Scandinavian noir, it's murder. They're murder mysteries that take place in Scandinavia, and they have that dark, brooding Scandinavian feel to them, or like that real Viking feel about them. And I find them quite entertaining when I have watched them.
Okay.
So
Definitely will check that out.
please do watch some and report back.
Scandi noir.
Yeah. So there you go. So we were talking before off camera about boobs.
Yes.
And what it's like to grow up with boobs, and you've now got daughters that've got boobs.
Yep.
So do you want to talk us through some of that again?
Well, I think from the time we're little, we're told to cover up. Like, I grew up very close with two cousins, one was female, one was male. He quite frequently ran around without a shirt on, but us girls could never do that. Even pre-puberty, even younger. And not that we really want to in Australia's heat and sunburn and all that stuff, but, I find it, and I discussed this with my daughter the other day because I was like, do I have something to share? And she's like, well, from her point of view, she's 31, so she's younger. And from her point of view, it's like until we stop seeing them totally as only a sexual object and not just part of a woman's body or a way to feed a baby or whatever, there's always going to be that response.
Yeah, right.
And it's not necessarily us women that see it that way. It's how we're perceived when we show a bit more boob or a bit more, thigh even. It's that old saying, if you don't want the attention, don't dress for it.
Okay.
But why can't we just dress to be comfortable?
Yeah.
Well, if you dress...
What about the innocence of youth?
Yeah.
Right? So a kid, regardless of sex or gender, a kid will just run around as is, however they feel physically comfortable. If it's a nice day like it is today, kids would just be running around naked, playing with the hose, going outside, doing whatever, right? We then impose some sort of standard on them and they change.
Yeah.
We say, oh, you can't go out like that. Not running down the street, but playing in the yard and doing whatever. Kids just don't even bother putting clothes on. They don't feel the need, right? It's perfectly innocent. And then we change that. We change that. That's sort of gets beaten out of us, I guess, by the time we get to adulthood. But you have to be modest, you have to cover up. I think we need to accept people being comfortable with who they are, and what that looks like is different for different people.
Yeah.
Really. But yeah, we change as we get older and we impose standards on kids. The innocence of kids shows the real picture.
So my question would be then, how do we go from how it is for our kids in Australia and America and the UK into how it is in Denmark and Holland and what have you?
I think you already said the answer, and that is to normalise nudity in the context of the story. If we are what we see, we learn what we see, and if we're seeing the images of people's bodies on television is overtly sexualised. We've turned people into a commodity,
Yeah, that's true.
into a piece of meat.
That's true.
We're not talking about people anymore. So we sexualise things.
Yeah, right. Okay.
The images you talked about in Papua New Guinea, where people were freely breastfeeding their children, in Scandinavia and Holland, where they're nude in the shower, which is perfectly natural. If we see and are exposed to more of that real life, then maybe we won't push down the path of sexualising people and making it that way.
But we are sexualising people. That's with the whole Instagram and what have you thing. We do tend to push down the road of I am a commodity, and even check out my body. Here it is.
Oh yeah,
and send me money as a result.
Your TikTokers and whatnot of the world, they're actually exploiting that, which is a shame. That's a real shame. I mean, you could say that they're freely acting of their own will and their own choices, and they're comfortable and happy with themselves. But I think there's probably a little bit too much of that, and not enough of normal, everyday people.
I agree, and actually now I'm starting to think that with the way things are going with Instagram and TikTok, it's probably actually going to get worse because it's almost like, I mean, you tell me from a woman's point of view, but I'm guessing like it's almost like if you want to see my boobs, then pull out your wallet. You need to pay money to see these.
Isn't that OnlyFans?
That is exactly OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when OnlyFans starts to become Instagram and TikTok, when it's because OnlyFans isn't explicitly adult site.
Okay.
And this is that whole thing of normalization.
Yeah.
OnlyFans is not a normalized thing. Like
it's a niche market.
You would keep it to yourself pretty much if you were on OnlyFans, even as a consumer. Whereas you wouldn't keep it to yourself if you're on Instagram or TikTok.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and I think we probably are normalising that more and more and more.
Yep.
And you reacted quite strongly when I said, it's almost, if you want to see my boobs, then pay me $10.
Yeah, and everything we come in contact with, mostly TV shows, movies, whatever, we can have a wide range of male actors, body shape, body size, whatever, but we tend to stick to the same type of female actress that is there. So kids are growing up constantly seeing an image on magazines or in movies that may not actually be attainable for some girls. Like genetically, there's no way I would ever be a size 0. That's just not physically possible in my family.
Right.
Why would you want to be?
Yeah, exactly. But that's what we're taught from a very young age. That's acceptable. You've got to be pretty. You've got to be beautiful. And if you can't be pretty or beautiful, you've got to be smart. Some of us aren't any of that.
Funny.
Or funny. Yeah.
These are the images that people are subjected to. This is what is normalised.
So if we start normalising what is a normal body or a normal relationship even, like my ex-husband's parents and my parents were of similar ages, but my ex-husband's parents were horrified that my dad was going down the shop one day and gave my mum a kiss while she was hanging out clothes.
Really?
They're like, your father gave your mum a hug and a kiss under the clothesline. And I'm like,
ooh. Yeah.
What's the big deal? This is normal for me. Affection's normal in my family.
Sure.
It wasn't as visible in his family.
Okay.
Which was very interesting.
You know what? I think Without the feedback from the outside world, it's just the three of us obviously talking. Without that feedback, I think. I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh, I've completely lost track.
Oh, don't worry about it. That's fine.
We'll find it again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll come to me.
Edit it out.
that's okay.
I'm just going to stare out the window while I think about what I was going to say then.
That's all right.
Yeah. I had a point, I'm sure I did.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember. Is it during this recording? Have I talked about the narratives of telling stories and why you need murder in there because it creates.
You did in the intro.
In this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Because this is sort of take 2 of this video. So because we tried to go live and the sound was terrible, so we're now doing it as a non gone live. One just so I can
Non-gone live.
well
Like that.
yeah we tried. Well, we're all here, so we might as well record
Friendly
something.
discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, but just to repeat what I said before, like I think the reason murder keeps coming up is because it gives you all the elements you need to tell a story, because you've got that something bad has happened and you want it to be made right, and you've got all of the interest and intrigue of how you're going to solve this mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all of that ability to bring in, science and what do you call it? All the
Analysis.
I'm trying to.
There's a word.
There's a word for it.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who's forgotten what the hell I was talking about.
Well,
You know
as
what?
you know, Paul, I'm fascinated with serial killers, true crime, and what you're talking about. But I look at it from probably a different point of view than maybe you two watch it.
Okay, cool. What is it?
Because I recently have a diploma in counselling. So I've always been fascinated watching those things as to how someone gets to that position where murder is okay, or
okay.
how their brain works. And
okay.
I'm sort of fascinated by the accidental murders. That's completely a whole different bag. But like, if you're talking about a serial killer, what in their lifetime, what in their growing up, I suppose, what has changed their brain in such a way that it's okay to hurt someone else for their own.
That's really good.
Yeah, so then you've got all that intrigue of all the psychology.
Yeah.
How did this person's mind get to the place where they thought this was okay?
There is actually a direct
And how
link
did they live
between-
with that?
There's a direct link, I think, between the nudity and the crime of murder then, in the way you're
How?
talking about. How? Crimes of passion. We
Yeah.
always talk about crimes of passion,
Yeah.
right? It's the jilted lover. It's something's gone wrong in that space. If we were to perhaps normalise regular behaviour and regular people, maybe we would see less of that.
Yeah, okay, so that's the question of, if you see it on TV or films, will you repeat it in real life?
Yeah.
And I think we have seen enough times where there have been sort of copycat murders happen that to some degree, my personal opinion is it does.
Yeah.
It does happen.
So people think it's okay to go down that path, where clearly it's not. But I'm thinking, if they were exposed more, or if it was normalised that we had regular people, you talked about people making love in the context of a broader story, nudity, which should be just freely given by people, I suppose, or just going about their business.
I just think the Scandinavian way of recognising it is more healthy.
Yeah.
That they just go, yeah, it's part of normal
So
life,
maybe
it's fine.
it'd be interesting to see in cultures like that work in real life. Take the shows out of it. In real life, are there as much murders? Are there as much crimes, sex crimes? Does that occur more or less in countries where they've normalised nudity?
Oh, okay. So comparing Scandinavian statistics with United States or Australia, whatever. Yeah.
That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer to that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly are murders in Scandinavia.
Oh,
yeah.
It certainly does happen. Whether it's more or less than various other countries. And then, of course, you've got the whole gun law thing, which I don't want to discuss today. But
Not touching that with a barge pole.
Yeah,
no. Well, I think quite a few of the European countries have gun laws that are not particularly different to the US. But they just don't seem to have the school shootings that the US does. But I don't want to go down that route. That's a whole other conversation.
It's a big can of worms, that one.
It's one I'm not qualified to have that conversation. I don't know enough about the
Qualified.
Well, all I can have is the opinion of an Australian Caucasian male, and we don't have guns in Australia.
I did do some research. Normally, I come into these things without any thought or preparation, but I did do some research, and I want to show you what I found.
Yeah, so what you got?
This is what I found. Excuse me.
Oh, hold on. I need my glasses.
You need to see this.
Thank you. So this is this is half a degree in
Well done.
in radiography, which is correct. He didn't even fall for the radiography mistake. This is my half degree in radiography that I got from Curtin University.
No, you don't know where it's from. You can't
from
see.
where?
It's only half.
And it's made out to Paul in Perth.
All in Perth.
Paul in Perth. Yeah. Thank you, Rick.
My pleasure.
That's great.
You earned it, man.
I did. I had half a degree.
I told you. Now you can say you have half a degree.
I do. I physically own half a degree in radiography. Thanks, Rick.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. You earned it. I told you I was going to do it.
I'm really impressed that you've done that.
It looks so good too.
You're better at Photoshop than I am. That's great. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, I've got an actual degree, Bachelor of Business, majoring in Information Technology. And when the GFC hit in 2009, wages for IT halved and responsibilities doubled. Ooh. So you needed to do 4 times as much work if you're on doing the same money. But I mean, that was almost impossible. So I was in a relatively good financial state by 2009. So I'm not 2009. GFC was 2000.
Yeah, I think it was
7
or 8.
7, I think it was.
I'm going 2008.
Okay, it was around there. And
split the difference.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Like middle ground.
So I just said, rather than work for half wage doing twice responsibility, I'm going to do something for me. So I thought, I'm going to go back to university and do the degree that I want to do now. And I wanted something, I certainly wanted something that was to do with people, but I also wanted something that was to do with science.
I vaguely remember this.
And I wanted something that was 50-50,
Yeah.
right? And I went through, I got the whole Curtin University handbook, and I looked at all of the different degrees, and I could only come up with 2 degrees that were 50-50. One was prosthetics and orthotics.
That was what I remember. I was going to say that.
There's prosthetics and orthotics, which isn't offered at Curtin. There's only one university in Australia that does it. And it was in Victoria. It's one of the Victorian universities. Because that you obviously have to meet people to give them an artificial limb, but you have to know all of the science of...
you were quite passionate about that, and I remember it because we had gone to lunch with Chinese class.
Yeah.
Our old Chinese class from school, which
Right.
you were an honorary part of.
Yeah. So I didn't actually study Mandarin Chinese.
Yeah.
But a lot of my friends studied Mandarin Chinese, and
Ni hao ma.
Yep.
Go on, sorry. I'm just...
我是澳大利亚人.
Ni sure Adalia and...
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I got it
sure
right.
Adalia
Okay.
and...
I just said I am an Australian person, which is one of the rare sentences that I remember. So yeah, I didn't study Mandarin, but I was hanging out with all the Mandarin people, and
and we had a lunch with our old teacher, and you were talking at that time about prosthetics. You were quite passionate about it, wanting to develop specific things for specific people, and
it had all the elements I wanted, because it had that, obviously the people contact, but also the science of that, but also at that time, and it has gone this way since, was robotics. Because it wasn't just that you would make a fiberglass leg or arm, it was that you would program it to do various things based on the electrical stimulation of the muscles up the forearm. So in fact, you would use a muscle in the forearm to actuate a finger,
Yeah.
and that you would train them, and you would have to get the strength of the grip to grasp the glass but not shatter the glass.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was all really interesting, and in my I'm going to save the world, I guess, kind of mind, I was thinking I could go to Vietnam and all of these various countries where there are a lot of landmines, and I could make prosthetic, because those landmines are still going off now, decades after the wars, and I could go there and make prosthetic legs for these unfortunate kids that are nothing to do with the war, but they still have their leg blown off.
Admirable.
And that just seems incredibly, manifestly unfair
Oh, yeah.
to me.
Oh, it is.
And that I could be part of that solution by at least making them an artificial leg. When I looked into it, the only university in Australia that offered it was in Victoria, and Victoria is famously cold and rainy. Now, part of the reason I'm interested in prosthetics and orthotics is I amputated the end of my right index finger when I was 19, and because of that I have very poor circulation in this finger, and what that means is when it's cold, my finger aches. And the reason I didn't want to go to this Victorian university was I'd be in a cold environment and my finger would ache. So interestingly enough, the one amputation that I had is what prevented me from studying
That's
to
ironic.
to help other people with amputations.
Ironic.
It was just how it turned out. And then the other thing I looked at was radiography, because again, that's dealing with people and it's a medical field, but it has a lot of physics in it because you're dealing with radiation. So you need to know how to administer radiation in as safe a manner as you possibly can, but still produce an image that is going to show the radiologist what they need to know. So just to be clear, I'll get this out there because the world needs to know. Radiographers take the image, radiologists interpret the image. So radiographers have degrees in science, specifically around physics. Radiologists are doctors. They have medical degrees and they know all about disease.
Very good.
So that's the difference.
I heard a funny story the other day. I was chatting with my dad, and he told me a story about. We're talking about comedians,
Yeah.
but the link to the amputation is there was a gentleman who had lost an arm, completely lost an arm from just below his shoulder, and he was having a hell of a time trying to reintegrate with life and find purpose and how he would go about doing things. And he watched Billy Connolly videos of all things, and that inspired him to take a comedic point of view, and he got a tattoo on the base of his stump that simply said, "To be continued." Right? I thought that was hilarious. That's just such a great take on what has happened and how to deal with it. So,
That's brilliant.
yeah, I know. It's a ripper. So the guy thought of that inspired by Billy Connolly, who is a very funny comedian. I like his work.
It's really, really good.
Yeah, but it speaks to the point of whatever the obstacle that people face, it's about trying to overcome that or to deal with it, I think, which is the nice part. And if you can do it with humour, that's even better. So
Yeah, that is
cracking
true.
tattoo.
They do say laughter is the best medicine.
They do.
Oh, for sure.
They do. And I've certainly found myself, because we were talking earlier about how when I go on Netflix, all I see is all these murder shows. And because of the things that are going on in my life, I'm actually quite sensitive to watching those things. I kind of don't want to watch them because I don't want to see how cruel man can be to man.
Yeah.
So I've been sort of avoiding a lot of those shows. The ones I haven't been avoiding has been the stand-up comedy.
Very good.
On Netflix, there is a lot of murder and violence, but there's also a lot of comedy.
Yeah, good.
And I find a lot of the movies that say they're comedies aren't all that funny, or at least the jokes are a long way spread out. Whereas with stand-up comedy, it's like the jokes are pretty regular.
Yep.
So I really, really enjoy stand-up comedy.
I think it's about intense. I agree. Some of the movies that are made to be comedy, it's hard to be. I think it's hard to be funny when it's not spontaneous. Mind you, the stand-up people, the stand-up comedians, they've obviously rehearsed their material and have practiced it, but they still managed to be funny. But some movies that are supposedly comedies, just most of them fall short for me. I just don't.
Yeah, I that's what I find.
Where the comedy's part of the story, when the story isn't the funny part, when the things that happen are funny in between, that's when it's good. But comedic stories, comedy movies, I try to avoid.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, like Get Smart, with Steve Carell.
Yeah, no, I haven't watched it.
Oh man,
That one.
I only know the original TV show.
no, it's
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So that would be one I'd say that is genuinely fun.
Really?
Steve Carell and Will Ferrell. I'd say if there is a comedy movie that you're going to enjoy, it's going to be one of those two guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
We watched the other day was Sherlock Holmes with Will Ferrell.
Yeah. We watched
And,
Holmes and Watson with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, and that was quite funny, wasn't it? Yeah, that was all right. But Talladega Nights is another one with Will Ferrell, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either. As I say, I've tended to avoid some of these.
Oh man, there's some great movies you can watch there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like.
And feel free to comment about what your favourite comedic movies are. Please, someone back me up on this Will Ferrell stuff, because I think Will Ferrell's hilarious. Another one we watched recently, Caroline and I watched, was called Afterlife. Now, Afterlife was a 3-season instalment from Ricky Gervais, and Ricky is the main character, and his wife has recently passed away from cancer, and it's the title is Afterlife, so it's the story of how he dealt with himself after life, like after a life in his life had ended. And Ricky in the story is he's
This is a comedy?
it is. It's a very, very dark comedy.
Okay.
Caroline loved it from start to finish. I initially really struggled because of the references to suicide mainly.
Okay.
But then, as the show went on, I started to change my thinking. It actually changed me as a person. So yeah, here we go. Lucky I prepared for this moment.
Here's one I prepared earlier.
Yeah. So as you know, I'm a bit of a crier. Say what you will about me, but I don't mind a cry. So yeah, I found Afterlife by Ricky Gervais actually life changing. It did actually make me re-examine a few things, and actually I'll disclose it because it actually involves the viewers.
Yeah, cool.
There's one conversation where Ricky is having, I think, with some of the people in the office. And do you remember Caroline? Correct me if I'm wrong anyway. And I think it's when he's talking with his brother-in-law. Yeah, he's talking with his brother-in-law. And the brother-in-law is going, look, a shit thing has happened, but you've got a choice of how you react to it. You can either react as you are and be devastated and depressed and what have you, or you can go, actually, we're all going to die, so let's enjoy it while we can. And there are some people that you are that spark of happiness in their life. So be that person. Don't be the grumpy one. Be the one that's cheerful because you have a choice.
Yep.
And then I realised that through my channel, maybe that is what I am to some other people.
Oh, for sure.
That they go, oh, I want to see what Paul's up to because I care about him and I hope some good things are happening to him. So I have a choice in how I see the world. I can either be floored by my situation and really sad and what have you, and that will come across, or I can choose to go, no, actually there are actually some nice things happening in my life and I'm going to focus on them. Yeah. And not only does that cheer me up, it can cheer other people up as well.
It's reciprocal. I see the love backward and forwards between you and
so it's that upward spiral.
Yeah, and lift each other.
So it really is that thing that
great.
You can choose to let the world lift you up and you lift the world up, or you can equally choose the other way. Like you can bring the world down and the world will bring you down too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's what Afterlife did for me.
That was worth the journey then. Glad you stuck with it.
Yeah, so look, if you do have a Netflix account and you're looking for a dark comedy, it's called Afterlife by Ricky Gervais. It's a 3-season story, and if you find it really challenging in the first 3 episodes, keep going. It is not afraid of.
It's real.
It's really real.
Raw.
It's really real. There's it really talks about what it's like to be suicidal. It really talks about the hopelessness and the I just don't care if I live or die.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. I don't want to give
It sounds
spoilers
like
away.
they dealt with the topic in a really healthy way. We were talking about normalising.
Well, tell me whether this is
things.
healthy, right? Because
Okay.
this is here's a scene in it. Ricky's saying, I don't care if I live or die, and the other guy says, well, why don't we get on the why don't we do the heroin? And he goes, okay. And the other guy says, what are you talking about? And he goes, okay, let's do heroin. And he goes, you sure? Because the other guy's a junkie. And he goes, yeah, let's do heroin. Because I don't care if I live or die.
Doesn't care, yeah.
Right? So is that, because you said it sounds really great to say, is being confronted with that, because that's where I found it really confronting, right? Because I'm like, holy crap, he's about to do something. I mean, I know it's a TV show, I know it's not for real life, but it's so close to real that you're going, holy crap, that guy would just go, yeah, fuck it, I'll do heroin.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll kill me. And I don't care.
Without knowing the outcome of that, I actually do think that that's healthy, because it's if someone in that is faced with that situation in life, that's a very real possibility, and that portrays how they might feel and react. If somebody in that situation hadn't seen that film or that movie, perhaps they would react differently. Perhaps it opens their eyes to something that they wouldn't otherwise normally have considered. If they suddenly find themselves in that situation, not having been exposed to it before, they might react differently. So I do think it's healthy to bring that sort of thing into the conversation. It doesn't necessarily have to be the spotlight, but that's a real person reacting to a situation in a real way. So in that context, I think it sounds healthy.
Okay, and what I would say is it highlighted for me that I'm not truly suicidal, because I watched
so
that.
Cool, right?
Yeah, because I watched it and went, oh no, I couldn't just go and do heroin tonight, which meant when I examined it, I'm actually not suicidal, because sometimes I wonder if I am, but then in those moments I go, oh, actually I'm not, because that actually I really reacted badly to that, and I was like, oh no, I couldn't just go out and do heroin tonight, it might kill me.
Yeah.
So it meant I knew then I'm not actually suicidal.
Yeah, that sounds
it might
good.
cross my mind.
I've got to watch this show.
But
For it to
Afterlife
have had such a profound impact on you.
Yeah, we can watch the first episode after this recording.
Yeah, sure, okay. I was thinking about something while we're talking about that, and we touched on it earlier as well, like normalising things. If you look at kids who are ill, so young children, you go to the kids' hospital, it's vastly different to what happens in the adult world. So someone middle-aged will get a disease and be confronted by it, and it's obviously very challenging. You can speak to this yourself.
Yeah.
But you go to the kids' hospital, there's kids with leukemias and cancers and other diseases that are maybe not even have long to live, and they are so vibrant and happy, regardless, because, I don't know, because they haven't had the sort of standards imposed on them that we're talking about. They're free and they react to things how they normally would, and they do it with a happiness and a childlike innocence about life, which is such a refreshing thing to see. I wish we could carry more of that into our adult lives.
I think that's part of the bittersweetness of becoming an adult, is you lose that childhood naivety.
Yeah.
So because what you're saying there is what's wonderful about the kids is they go in with a certain blissful naivety, which is really refreshing because they're not afraid, because they don't know any better. Yeah. Right? But part of what is being an adult is being wise, and part of being wise is knowing that this thing or that thing, or that's really going to mess with you.
Yeah.
So
I take out of that kids are innately positive, right? They react to things in a good way.
yeah,
You call it blissful naivety, but what it suggests to me is that as adults, we're exposed to things and our experiences conditions us to be negative. So we're exposing ourselves to the wrong things.
okay. I'm going to give you an alternate point of view.
Okay, yeah, awesome.
Right?
I love this.
Because I'm interested in the way you're analysing as well. Now, imagine that life, or the process of getting older and wiser, is actually the process of realising that how wonderful you thought life was as a kid is actually incorrect, and actually life is really hard, really unfair, and is actually full of pain and suffering, but it is still worth it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas when you're a kid, we just say everything is wonderful.
Yep.
And in fact, the process of getting older and wiser is the process of going, actually, it's how I thought of it as a kid is pure naivety.
Yeah, I understand that point of view. I don't subscribe to it.
Really?
No. I think that the kids are the wise one. We are naturally born with the ability to take on whatever comes our way in a positive fashion, and life is wonderful. And we are conditioned out of that by circumstances and our environment and what we're exposed to. But when you think back on it, you can draw on that strength and say, whatever life has thrown at me, I know that from my beginning, life is good. Life is beautiful. I can react and deal with anything that comes my way. It's not naivety at all. It's the innate joy and beauty of people and the life experience.
Yeah, maybe, okay.
Sorry,
maybe,
man, I'm just
No,
optimistic.
yeah, I'd like to think that I am too, but I'm more, or maybe a realist. I just, like, bad things happen to good people.
Oh, yeah.
It's that whole
Yeah,
thing
of
we
course.
talked about earlier about, the cavalry ain't necessarily coming. The only person, in certain situations, the only person that's going to help you out of your situation is you.
Yeah. And you are that child who has the ability to deal with it.
Then what about, see this, Rick, there are some people that get overwhelmed,
Oh, yeah, of course.
right? Where they can't just go, I'm going to smile and laugh my way out of this.
No.
They're absolutely overwhelmed.
People take their lives.
Yeah, so I mean,
know.
how does that fit in with your worldview? Because I don't get it. It's, to me, life is hard.
Oh, yeah, it is. I'm not suggesting it isn't, not for an instant. And clearly, it's too hard for some. People are overwhelmed by things. It happens. But I think the broader human experience, we are actually responsible for that. We've let those people down.
Well, there are people that are born with multiple sclerosis or something like that. That they are just going to have a harder life compared to people that don't.
Yeah.
And there's no rhyme or reason to why that's particularly happened to them. They were just born with a deficit compared to some other people. And some people are born super healthy, like ultra athletic and don't have any genetic conditions, and they're lucky enough to be born into a wonderful, loving household, and they grow up, just spot on perfect.
Yeah. I think on that, it's about the search for meaning, right? But I've come to realise, because these situations exist, because these people are confronted by such things like you're describing, there is no why. It just happens.
I agree.
There is no why. There is no point saying, why did this happen to me? Because there is no answer to that question.
That's right. I mean, it's like, why did I get pseudomyxoma peritonitis? It's of unknown origin. Like if I'd been a smoker and I got lung cancer, I could at least go, oh, I probably shouldn't have smoked. But the cancer I got, no one knows where it comes from.
Yeah, exactly.
And
there is no why.
It's 3 in a million people per year.
So knowing that, there is no reason why what happened to you happened. It's about accepting that, and that is the reality. Why? It doesn't matter, because this is the reality, regardless of whether you know the causes.
I agree.
It is the reality that you face, And different people face different realities, and it's going to be very challenging for some people.
Yeah,
extremely.
So this is what I was saying about my worldview, is the process of getting older, is the process of going, actually, things are a bit more shit than I thought when I was a kid, but life is still wonderful and worth living. See what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because I'm not naive to cancer and getting older and breaking bones and getting osteoporosis or bone arthritis or something like that. So that's my view on the world. I do love the naivety of kids, and I do sometimes take strength in it. But I'm also aware that it is blissful ignorance.
Yeah. Okay.
But it doesn't change the fact that it's bliss.
Okay.
It is still bliss.
This is what I like about the conversations you and I have, right? Because we'll just talk about something, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I'll say a bunch of stuff I've been thinking on, and I've got this good idea or a way of talking about something, and I'll blurt it out to you, and you'll sit and listen, and then you'll say, I disagree. And the minute you say, I disagree, I'm like, excellent. I feel really happy about that. Why? Because it lets me reformulate my view.
Yeah,
or hear an alternative.
Yeah, to challenge your own
Right?
point of view of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
When somebody doesn't agree with your point of view, and you think you have a very valid point that you've thought on and it's well-founded, but they have offer an alternative, embrace it. Absolutely embrace it.
Yeah, when it can be really constructive conversation like this, I think when you get really diametrically opposed individuals, then all they'll do is shout each other down and say you're wrong.
When they're invested in it and they're not willing to
they're not willing to
explore the path.
That's right. Yeah. So to the blissful ignorance thing. So this coming Friday, I've got an angiogram and my baseline CT scan for my post-operative cancer. Right? So at the moment, I am blissfully ignorant. I do not know what my heart and my abdomen are doing. I'm blissfully ignorant. So I'm fine now, right? But next Friday I have the scan, and the following Monday I get the report from the scan.
Yep.
So next Monday week, I cease being blissfully ignorant. I become specifically aware. Now, I don't. So, and the report could say anything from it looks great and there's no evidence of disease, all the way up to your pulmonary embolism has scarred your lungs and we can see the cancer coming back already, right? So it's going to be somewhere in that range. I'm choosing to dare to dream of the good stuff. So I'm daring to dream that maybe it's going to say no evidence of disease and pulmonary embolism is completely healed up. I'm relatively confident on the pulmonary embolism because even while I was in New South Wales, they were, I think the last CT scan there didn't really make any mention of pulmonary embolism shadows. So even during the time I was there, it was
Okay.
well on the, in fact, to be honest, they wouldn't have probably let me discharge me from the hospital if it had been bad, and they did discharge me.
So you've obviously given some thought as to the possibilities, the outcomes.
Yeah, of course I have.
And you're choosing to embrace what might be positive.
Yeah, and this is something I learned from Caroline, which is, what if everything goes right? Because I have a tendency to go, what if everything goes wrong? And one night Caroline said, yeah, but what if everything goes right? I went, oh, because that's...
You just can't know till then.
Yeah, but it's equally as much, well, not about equally as much, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility that things go well rather than things go badly. And I was always going, what if things go badly? And Caroline was going, what if things go well? So I'm now trying to think more along those lines and think, if the report does say no evidence of disease found and lungs are fine, then that means I've got probably at least 5 years left to live, maybe 10. And I can sort of get on with living. Whereas because It's from the. I think it's in the Shawshank Redemption. They say, "Get on with living or get on with dying." Right. And at the moment,
Good movie.
yeah, at the moment, I don't know that I'm particularly getting on with living. I'm certainly not getting on with dying, but I'm not completely getting on with living.
No, but you are enduring and you are surviving.
I'm
and
doing that.
The
Yeah, I'm doing
opportunity
that.
for that living is growing.
Yeah, and look, and I don't have to look very far back in my video catalogue to see how far I've come.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I know that actually I am really improving. It's
still very real. What people see in this space is a small portion of what is you.
Yeah.
There is a lot of pain and suffering off camera and things that you're having to endure. People see the best of you. Like the comments that come in are like how much they love you, how much they're happy to see you up and about and vibrant and whatnot. But that's not the modus operandi of you now. You're half the time, more than that, you're down physically. You've got some challenges to overcome. They see the best of you.
yeah.
They certainly see the best of you. You know what? I throw a complete spanner in the works, right? I can't speak to your experience. I can't imagine what you're actually going through. I see it. I hear you talk about it. I can't imagine what it's like to do it for myself. But
Yeah.
my take on things, you spoke about blissful ignorance. I think waiting for a test, waiting for some results or outcomes, I wouldn't even think of what the possibilities were, because you find out when you find out.
Not really. Not even when it's.
Nah.
Not even when it's a big deal.
Oh, it's a massive deal. It's a life-changing deal.
Yeah,
it's
but
a life or not deal.
Have you ever had a test where
No.
medical test where you have? What did you have?
Really?
As we've talked, I've had multiple miscarriages and baby loss, and in having children with my husband, and I got to the stage, it was like I dreaded ultrasounds. I dreaded going to, because I was a bit like you, it's like wherever I don't know, this baby's still safe, alive,
Yeah.
moving.
If they don't look.
Yeah,
then
if they don't look, then they can't tell me that there's a problem.
Yeah.
Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, so it's not as life-changing as what you go through, but it was still huge.
Yeah.
I remember going to one ultrasound. I was 18 weeks pregnant, and I looked at David because he was heading to work that afternoon, and I looked at him and I just said out of the blue, "What if everything's not okay?" And he said, "Oh, don't be like that. There's no we've got no reason that it wasn't." And unfortunately, everything wasn't okay. Nicholas didn't have a heartbeat, and then the following week I was delivering Nicholas at like 19 weeks and 5 days. So, but it was just like, until that ultrasound, to me, he was fine. He was still, you know,
and you're blissfully ignorant.
Yeah. And then you're not. And like, I feel for especially my two daughters, because they went through that knowing mum was pregnant, oh, mum's not pregnant. So they once said to me that unlike their friends who believe a positive pregnancy test leads to a baby, they're in that group that know that that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And I sort of feel for them, because they've lost that ignorance. They've lost that first time they get a pregnancy test, if they ever choose to give me grandchildren. The first time they get that test, they may not just go, "Oh wow, I'm pregnant." They may go, "Oh wow, I'm pregnant. Oh, will I get to keep it?
I hope I keep
There is a chance I
Will
will
I
have
get
a baby.
Yeah, it's that blissful ignorance. And I think talking about how children face things, I think as parents we protect them so much from the realities of the world, so that they don't have that, oh, life is tough, life is hard. I think as parents we try to make it, even with our sick children, we try to give it that they can fight it, they can be happy, they can still have the innocence of childhood.
Yeah, and if they're sick, they'll get healthy again.
Yeah, whereas probably mum and dad are in the background panicking, going, what's the next scan going to show?
Yeah.
How long do I have to hold my child?
Yeah, and then there's the Father Christmas thing, which is that, there's this almost superhero figure that's like, I'd really, really love a push bike, and you say, like, I can't afford it, but maybe Father Christmas can, and in the background, as you say, they're scrambling to get the money, and then Father Christmas will bring the bike if they can.
Yeah.
I find that one of the. I haven't had kids myself, so I've never had to go through this, but I've always found the Father Christmas and Easter Bunny thing really strange, because we tell our kids that it's really important to always tell the truth.
Yep.
And then the very next thing we do is we lie to them, and so.
No, you don't.
Well, I've got some.
You've got to believe.
Off camera, Rick, I've got something to tell you about Father Christmas, the Easter Bunny, and while I think of it, the Tooth Fairy.
My thing with that is we go all year telling our kids, don't talk to strangers, don't approach strangers, and at Christmas we go, here, sit on a stranger's lap.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I still did it, don't get me wrong. I got critics.
It's even worse than that, because you're saying sit on a stranger's lap that I couldn't identify in a lineup because he's wearing a false beard.
Yeah, and because he's one of
Santa in a
Santa's,
lineup.
it's one of Santa's helpers, because he can't be everywhere in the month before Christmas. But and accept lollies from this stranger. We spend all year telling our kids do not accept lollies from anyone.
Yeah.
Except that guy in red and white.
Yeah.
It is strange. It is really strange.
Yeah.
But you still do it.
There's so much in that. It's
crazy.
crazy.
Which is why I say that we shield our kids and say to our kids everything is fine, including inventing Father Christmas, Easter Bunny, and Tooth Fairy to support.
You've got to believe.
You got to believe.
You got to believe.
Okay, I believe.
I believe. And as life goes on, then you discover that well, I feel like I can't even say it now, but those three figures may or may not be actually real, and that other things in life are hard, and and that you're not going to get the $100,000 a year job straight out of high school or straight out of university.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, I know, but we tend to perpetuate the myth that getting a job is easy and recovering from sickness is easy, and potentially getting pregnant and having a family is easy, and actually quite often it's hard. It is hard.
I think I worked out at one stage there in 5 years, which is 60 months.
Yeah.
5 years is 60 months. I spent 45 of them pregnant or just having a baby, and out of that I got 2 full-term children and 1 half-term child. So, it was a tough 5 years.
So there you go, right? Life is hard.
Life is crap at times. But
but you say overall, but it's worth living.
It is, and it's like I would never wish what you've been through on what has happened to you.
Yeah.
But to me, I got to meet you through that.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. And then
good things come out of bad things.
Yeah, and I immediately reflect that in the time that I've had this disease, I'm aware of other people that have got it worse than me. So I won't give any more details, but some people have contacted me and they went in for the CRS and HIPEC operation, and they opened them up and they were inoperable, and they just sewed them back up and said, we're not going to take anything out. You've got 3 months left to live. Enjoy it. So even in my case, I still have just enough digestive system to have a functioning system. Mm-hmm. So I should get years. There's other people that I'm aware of. But these other people that did almost nothing different to me.
Yeah.
And they get months.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we spoke about Austin recently, and Austin, he's 28 years old, and he's got Kaposi's sarcoma, I think it's called, which is a soft tissue sarcoma. So he's got it in his spinal cord, brain, he's got it in the muscles on his left arm, and he's got a second cancer, so completely unrelated to the first cancer. He's got a second cancer in his mouth.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
How unlucky can you be?
Yeah, and he's 28, and he was really, really healthy, and he was, a bodybuilder and a weightlifter,
Wow.
doing everything right, and at 28 he's been struck down. So
There's no rhyme or reason
No, there's no why.
that's right.
to any of it.
That's right.
You can do everything right and still,
Yeah,
or on the other side of it, you can do everything wrong. And my grandfather smoked his whole life and didn't die of any form of cancer.
yeah. Well,
Work that out.
and talking about doing everything right, at 50 years old, in Australia we
Yeah.
get the poo test in the mail.
Yep.
So 50 years old, I did that, right? And said, result normal, but this is not the gold standard. If you want the gold standard, go and have a colonoscopy. And my dad had polyps, which is a forerunner to colon cancer. So I thought, well, I want the gold standard. So at 51, I went and had a colonoscopy, which looks at the inside of the colon. And that came back normal. And then at 52, I was diagnosed with pseudomyxoma peritoni, which is the outside of the colon is diseased. So I feel like I did everything right. I did the poop on a stick. I did the colonoscopy. I was eating high fibre food.
Yeah.
And
I do like the poop on a stick bit because it's the one opportunity you get in your life to literally give shit to the government.
oh, yes.
Never thought about it that way.
Yeah. And have them thank you for it. Yeah.
Here's my shit, government.
Yep. No, good point. Good point.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, got to take the positive spin, right?
yeah, that's true.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
true. So, sometimes I feel like in terms of colon cancer, I did every reasonable thing to prevent and detect it, and it still hit me. The only other thing I could possibly have done, because I did have some very slight pain in my lower abdomen, is I could have got a CT scan earlier. But I had very vague, it wasn't real pain, it was just kind of, it felt the same as having a little bit of like indigestion or stomach cramp or whatever. It wasn't real pain, it was just a bit of an odd feeling.
Yeah.
That now I know was quite possibly my appendix getting inflamed and upset.
See, this leads me to medical research. I love medical research, right? For just this reason. There's all these things. You were talking about having vague symptoms. You weren't really aware what it was. At some stage you saw a doctor and obviously what's happened has happened. But that's what people do. It's like, I have something that I'm feeling. I go to the doctor prescribes a specific test, looking for that thing that he or she thinks it might be.
Yeah.
It would be much better if we had broad screen testing. Star Trek, they've got they scan you.
The body scan.
And they
Yeah,
tell you
yeah,
everything
yeah.
that's right. Okay, so that's the future view. But medical research can lead us towards that. When I worked at Edith Cowan University, I volunteered and was part of a study. You just needed to give blood, which was intended to research broad screen cancers. So from a single blood test, they were aiming to try to find out whether there were multiple cancer markers in your blood.
Yeah.
So rather than I've got a sore here in my appendix and do some CT scans, whatever, you go for a regular blood test. The regular blood test picks up any potential problems or any potential cancers. So we're working towards that. I think medical research is brilliant in that space.
Yeah, and had I had an abdominal scan a year earlier and caught it a year earlier, I may have more colon than I have now. And that, including all of my colon.
Yeah.
And of course I look back and go, oh, I wish I had only just done that. But even then it was lucky because we only found it because I decided to finally get on and go, why am I getting back pain? And which was my ankylosing spondylitis. It wasn't cancer.
Yep.
But it just happened that they did a CT abdo, and the CT abdo found the ascites, and the ascites put us down a completely different path of conversation.
So we, as a society, we've moved forward a long way. The history of medicine and diagnosis and treatment has come a long, long way.
Yeah.
We still obviously have a long way to go, but I think we're headed in the right direction. That's for sure. I mean, think about it, like barbershops, they had the red and white pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was because they used to do surgery.
They used to do the bleeding,
Yeah.
They used to bleed people.
Yeah. They used to either slice their veins open or they'd put leeches on them. And there is almost, I don't even think there is a single disease or malady where that is actually the correct treatment. In all cases, they made the patient worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All cases.
At least we're analysing things a little bit better now.
Up to and including killing them, by the way. Because if they got infected, they didn't have penicillin. They didn't have antibiotics back then.
No.
Because you're talking about the early 1800s there.
They give them something to bite on, put a tourniquet on, and get out the bone saw, and off comes your arm.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of our advances were made in field medicine during wars.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Crimean War was one in particular, which was about that time as well. I forget exactly when the Crimean War was, but it was in the 1800s.
Don't know. I'm not big on history.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. All right, we may have exhausted our conversation. We've certainly moved on from Mammaries and Murderies, but
We went from Pavlov's dog conditioning to Schrodinger's cat.
we did.
We did.
It's about not knowing and blissful ignorance.
Indeed. So we'll probably close off about there. I'll just have a look at the clock and see how long we've got. Oh gosh, it's over an hour. It's
Really?
one hour 6. Time flies. I'll cut this video down a little bit. I don't think there's very much I'll need to trim off it, and we'll post it up as Paul and Ricky number 2 with Sharon here as well. So thanks from all three of us.
Yep.
And we'll see you again next time. Sorry it didn't work out with the sound earlier. I'll see if I can find a some kind of room mic in the meantime.
Don't forget the care
Don't
button.
forget the care.
Yes.
If you've made it to 1 hour 6, I hope you've done it. But don't forget the care button. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you later.